Let me tell you about Claire Sutton. 44 years old. Chief Relationship Officer at Meridian Ventures, a growth stage investment firm that connected promising tech startups with the institutional investors who could scale them. Not a glamorous title, but in venture capital, the product is trust. And trust lived at Meridian Ventures almost entirely in Claire Sutton's contacts list. For 9 years, Claire had built Meridian's investor network from a handful of angel connections into a roster of 43 institutional partners, family offices, sovereign wealth funds, pension managers, and high net worth syndicates, representing over $2.1 billion in committed capital. She had not inherited those relationships. She had built them. One dinner, one conference, one honest conversation at a time. When Meridian's founding partner retired and handed the firm to Dominic Hawley, 49, former investment banker, impeccable resume, zero relationship management experience, Claire did what she always did. She made the introductions. All of them. 27 dinners, 14 one-on-one calls, 6 investor events, each one designed to transfer the relational equity she had built over 9 years into something Dominic could build on. She vouched for him. Told people she trusted that Dominic was the right person to lead the firm forward. She put her credibility on the line for a man she barely knew. 8 months later, Dominic called her into his office and told her that her role was being restructured, effective end of the month. What Dominic did not understand was the specific nature of the relationships Claire had built. They were not Meridian's relationships. They were Claire's, built on her credibility, her consistency, her 9 years of showing up exactly as she said she would. And when 43 institutional investors found out that the woman who had introduced them to Dominic had been quietly pushed out, 11 asked questions, 7 requested calls, and 3 of the largest, representing a combined $60 million in committed capital, pulled their commitments entirely. Within 30 days, without a single phone call from Claire. Without her doing anything at all. Except leaving. This is the story of how one restructuring decision unraveled a $60 million capital base, and how the most powerful thing Claire Sutton ever did was simply walk out the door. Buckle up, because sometimes the twist isn't what you do after they fire you, it's what disappears when you go. It started 18 months before Claire's termination. Meridian's founding partner, Robert Gale, 67, the kind of man who built things quietly and ran them carefully, called Claire into his office on a Thursday afternoon. He was retiring. His successor, Dominic Hawley. He knows capital markets, Robert said. But he doesn't know people the way you do. I need you to bring him in properly. Claire did it without hesitation. Because she trusted Robert. Because she believed in Meridian. Dominic was charming in those early meetings, asked good questions, remembered names, followed up promptly. Claire thought it might actually work. Then Robert retired. Within 60 days, Dominic began making changes, small ones first, reporting structures, team titles. Then larger ones, strategy shifts that favored his investment banking background over Meridian's relationship-driven model. Claire raised concerns, twice, in writing. Was told the firm was evolving. Then came the restructuring conversation. Now, if you believe that the most valuable things in any business are the ones that can be put on a balance sheet, subscribe to Tangled Stories. I'm Brett. Around here, the most expensive restructurings always eliminate the wrong person. Dominic's office. Tuesday morning, no HR present. Claire, the firm is moving to a more streamlined relationship model. Your role, as currently structured, doesn't fit the new direction. Claire looked at him. Which investors have you spoken to about this transition? She asked. We'll manage the communication centrally, Dominic said. Claire nodded once. Stood up. Dominic, she said, the relationships in this network are personal. They were built on my credibility over 9 years. When I leave, some of those investors will reach out to me directly. Dominic's expression was patient, slightly condescending. The expression of a man who believed relationships were transferable assets like any other. We'll manage it, he said. I'm sure you will, Claire said. And walked out. She did not send an angry email. Did not call a single investor. Not one. Here is what Dominic did not understand about Claire's investor relationships. They were not maintained by Meridian's brand. They were maintained by Claire's consistency. 43 institutional investors had committed capital to Meridian funds, in significant part because Claire had called them twice a year without fail, remembered their concerns, followed through on every commitment, and told them the truth even when it was inconvenient. They trusted the firm because they trusted her. When she left, several found out the way investors always find out about personnel changes at small firms, through their networks. A casual mention at a conference. A LinkedIn update. A mutual contact over coffee. Claire had not announced her departure, she had simply stopped being there. And in the specific silence of someone who had always been reliably present, investors noticed. The first call came 11 days after Claire's departure. Harrison Wells, managing director of a family office, $8 million committed to the current fund. Dominic, I heard Claire is no longer with the firm. We made some structural changes, Dominic said smoothly. Is she gone? Harrison asked. She's transitioned out. A pause. I'd like to schedule a call to discuss our position. By end of that week, 7 investors had requested calls. Dominic handled them personally. Charming, reassuring, strategic. Most seemed satisfied. 2 remained quiet in a way that felt less like satisfaction and more like consideration. Then, on day 23, Dominic received a formal withdrawal notice from Arcadia Capital Partners, $22 million. Stated reason, strategic reallocation. Actual reason, which Dominic learned through a contact 3 days later, was that Arcadia's managing partner had called Claire directly. Claire had been professional, warm, said only that she had left the firm and wished it well. Nothing negative, nothing disparaging. But what she hadn't said, the absence of reassurance, the careful warmth of someone choosing words deliberately, had told Arcadia's managing partner everything he needed to know. He had known Claire for 7 years. He knew the difference between her endorsing something and her declining to. He pulled the commitment. Inside Meridian, the atmosphere shifted. Dominic called an emergency leadership meeting. Who manages the remaining investor relationships? His head of strategy asked. The honest answer, Claire had. And the associate Dominic had assigned 3 weeks ago had never met most of the investors personally. Dominic made calls, some went well. Some went to voicemail and stayed there. And day 31, 2 more notices arrived. Brightfield Institutional $19 million. Cedar Point Family Office, $21 million. Both citing portfolio rebalancing. Both having reached their own conclusions without Claire saying a word against the firm, $60 million. Gone. 31 days. Dominic sat with the 3 withdrawal notices for a long time. Then called Robert Gale. Robert listened. Then said, very quietly, call Claire. Dominic called. Claire, I'd like to meet. Of course. What would you like to discuss? A pause. I think you know. I'd prefer to hear it from you, Claire said. He told her. The withdrawals. The $60 million. The calls not being returned. Claire listened without interrupting. Dominic, she said, I haven't said a negative word about Meridian to a single investor. I know, he said. And I haven't encouraged anyone to withdraw. I know that too. Then you understand, Claire said, that this isn't about what I did. It's about what I represented. And what my absence represents. Dominic was quiet. What would it take for you to come back? He said. Claire thought about 9 years. About 27 dinners organized for a man who had then eliminated her role. About 3 investors who had pulled $60 million without her asking, simply because they paid attention to who was in the room and what it meant when that person left. I'll have my attorney send terms, she said. Claire's terms were precise. 1. Reinstatement as Chief Relationship Officer with formal approval rights over any investor communication strategy. 2. Compensation restructured to $380,000 base plus 0.4% carry interest in the current and all future funds she supported. 3. A 5-year employment agreement with termination only for documented cause, approved by the full partnership. 4. A formal acknowledgement that her role was foundational to Meridian's investor relationships and that her termination had been inconsistent with the firm's fiduciary obligations to its LPs. 5. Robert Gale reinstated as a non-executive advisory partner. Dominic's attorney reviewed the terms. Then reviewed the math. $60 million already withdrawn. 7 investors still in consideration mode, representing another $140 million in potential exposure. Reputational damage in a market where trust traveled faster than any press release, versus Claire's terms. The board met for 90 minutes. They accepted everything. Claire returned on a Monday morning, no announcement. No firm-wide email, no LinkedIn post. She simply showed up, made calls. The same calls she had always made. Within 2 weeks, Arcadia Capital reversed their withdrawal. Within 6 weeks, Brightfield and Cedar Point had re-engaged. Not because Claire asked them to. Because she was there again. The $60 million came back. All of it. Dominic remained at Meridian, a different version than the one who had called Claire's role not fitting the new model. He, Attended investor meetings differently now, listened more. Asked Claire's opinion before decisions that touched the LP base. He was not a bad person. He was a person who had not understood what he was working with until it was gone. Robert returned in his advisory capacity. At his first meeting back, he said nothing about what had happened. Just looked at Claire across the table and nodded. The way people nod when something has been restored that should never have been broken. The carry interest clause, minus 0.4% across the current fund, was projected to generate between $3.2 million and $5.8 million over the fund's life. Claire didn't frame the new contract. Didn't hang it on the wall, she put it in a drawer. And went back to work. They say Dominic now describes relationship management as the most undervalued function in venture capital. He says it at conferences, means it genuinely. Every new hire at Meridian sits through an onboarding session where Claire explains, simply and without drama, how institutional relationships actually work, not through brand, not through track record alone. Through trust, built one honest conversation at a time. Over years. Impossible to replace with a restructuring memo. And that, my friends, is how one restructuring decision triggered a $60 million withdrawal cascade, and how the most powerful thing Claire Sutton ever did was walk out of a building without saying a single negative word. Because some people hold relationships in their contacts list, and some people hold them in something that can be transferred, restructured, or eliminated by a Tuesday morning conversation. Claire held the second kind. Dominic found out 31 days later. If this story hit your justice receptors, subscribe to Tangled Stories, drop a like, and share this with anyone who has ever been told their role doesn't fit the new model, because here, every story has a twist. And sometimes that twist is $60 million walking out the door behind you. I'm Brett, and I'll see you in the next one.